I'm here to sum up the story for you if you want, so you can know exactly what you're about to watch beforehand. Skip this part if you don't want spoilers of the story. Ava recounts a terrifying experience that unfolded over several days, beginning with unsettling encounters at a bus stop and a supermarket in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She experiences escalating fear when strange events occur at her boyfriend Evan's house, culminating in a terrifying ordeal where she believes she's being targeted by two men. Despite calling the police, she's forced to jump from a window to escape, sustaining injuries. Later investigations reveal the assailants' identities as Marco and Mason, who were wanted for previous crimes. Ava's trauma from the incident lingers, leading to the end of her relationship with Evan.
Hi, I'm Ava, and this is a scary story of mine that I'd like to share with you. I remember it like it happened yesterday. It all started before the actual incident. As I stood at the bus stop in Fort Wayne, Indiana on that crisp September morning, the air seemed charged with anticipation, as if change hung on the horizon. Van Wert, Ohio, beckoned me with the comforting embrace of family and home. But as I waited, a headline in the newspaper seized my attention. Unidentified suspects on the run after doing unspeakable things to woman, it declared, casting a shadow of fear over my intended sanctuary. Glancing around, I noticed an old man engrossed in the very newspaper that had caught my eye. Anxious to divert my thoughts, I tried to focus on the mundane details of the day, but his disapproving grunt only deepened my discomfort. Boarding the bus offered a brief respite from the unsettling atmosphere at the stop. As I sought refuge in the distraction of my phone, the familiar glow of the screen provided an escape from the weight of my thoughts. Yet, exhaustion soon overtook me, pulling me into a restless slumber. The abrupt stop of the bus jolted me awake, the sights of Van Wert greeting me as I disembarked. A call to my parents reassured them of my safe arrival, though a lingering unease tainted the joy of our reunion. Reluctantly, I ventured to the supermarket at their request. Inside, the encounter with a daunting stranger left me shaken. With a sense of urgency, I hurried through my errands, longing for the safety of my parents' home. At my parents' house, we enjoyed a nice family dinner together, and after, we watched some television. I was there for a couple of days before my boyfriend Evan had texted me if I was coming back. I agreed to come back, and I told him to come pick me up in a few minutes. I said my goodbyes and went out. As Evan and I journeyed back to Fort Wayne, the events in Van Wert already felt like distant memories. Yet, as we neared his house, a sense of foreboding settled over me. A black car trailed behind, its presence unsettling. But with Evan's reassurance, I pushed my fears aside, eager to find comfort in the familiarity of his home. The days that followed were peaceful. The tranquility of Evan's house soothed the unease that had settled over me. Yet, as Evan left for his father's house one night, the sense of fear returned, making me really uncomfortable. Alone. Alone in the darkness, a sense of foreboding washed over me, the silence broken only by the soft glow of the computer screen in my room. I was looking for a job in Fort Wayne and enjoying some cute cat videos. All of a sudden, a shadow passed my window. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared in the moment that I thought a heart attack was imminent. Desperate for reassurance, I reached for my phone, only to find it dead. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I searched for a charger, but my efforts were in vain. I hurried to the kitchen and grabbed one of the knives. I thought of running away outside, however, I didn't have the guts to do it, as the figure could be at my door at any moment. I quickly went upstairs into Evan's room, and I hid. I hid away from the figure that was probably still waiting for me outside. I had no idea as to who it could be outside of the house. I hid there in the agonizing silence for what felt like hours. Car sounds could be heard in the distance. I didn't know what I felt in that moment. It was awfully scary. I could hear the car coming into Evan's driveway. I felt relief and fright at the same time. The feelings I felt then are unexplainable. I was scared to death. I could hear the front door being opened and someone shouting out my name. It was Evan. I went downstairs to see him, still scared like never before. When I saw him, I felt relieved like never before. But I don't know why. maybe because of the emotional collapse, I yelled at him and I cried. When he asked me what happened, I couldn't speak. I could only cry. He tried to calm me down, but I just went upstairs back to his room and I went to sleep. I couldn't believe it. He left me alone that night, like I was nothing to him. The next day, he asked me if I would go to the park with him. Even though I still felt betrayed from last night's events, I still decided to go with him. We had a good time, but I still didn't tell him what happened last night. To be honest, I wasn't even sure what I saw myself. I just didn't want to embarrass myself even more, I guess. A couple of weeks had passed, and Evan went out to buy some groceries. I got a job at the local nail salon, and everything was going great until something very awkward happened. A client at the nail salon who I was working with completely weirded me out. He started asking me very creepy questions, and the guy just gave off the creepiest vibes ever. But regardless, I just kept doing his nails and ignored his antics. When I went back home in the evening, I called for Evan, but no one was answering to my calls. Strange. I went upstairs to look for him, but he wasn't home. I called him on the phone, and yet again, no one answered. I felt betrayed again. In the time when I needed him the most, he didn't answer. Eventually, the sun dipped below the horizon, and Evan still hasn't come back. I went in my room and I started scrolling on my phone. I fell asleep. Hours later, I was woken up to someone knocking on the front door. I was scared, as I caught some movement on the window with the peripheral vision of my eye. I quickly went upstairs once again, and I tried calling Evan. This time he had finally answered. I couldn't speak loudly and let the possible assailants know I was home. I whispered and told him that I'm scared and that I needed help, as I thought someone was coming for me. He said that I should stop worrying so much and that it's probably just an animal or something. He hung up. The son of a bitch. The banging on the door continued, this time louder. I called the police and told them what was going on. They said that they would come in a couple of minutes. Banging continued for what felt like hours, and eventually I heard something that filled me with dread like never before. They had broken in through the window downstairs. Thoughts were rampant, and my heart was running like crazy. I didn't know what to do. I knew the police were coming, but I felt like it was over, like I was dead already. It felt like the world was spiraling into chaos, like the darkness that had lurked at the edges of my consciousness was closing in with each passing moment. Alone, stuck in the dark room, listening to the footsteps nearing the room I was in, I suddenly developed an idea that could help me. I could jump out of the window. Sirens could be heard from the distance. I thought of jumping, but I didn't have the guts to do it. Finally, the footsteps were at my door. Adrenaline was pumping through my veins like crazy. The assailants were banging at my door, trying to break it open. The sirens were clearly getting closer, but I didn't know if they would make it in time. The door was open. Even though I saw them for only a split second, I knew exactly who they were. It was the man from the grocery store and the man from the nail salon. They were the ones who followed me here. Instinct took over and I jumped. My legs were badly hurt and I was paralyzed. I don't know if I couldn't move because of the stress or because I jumped from the second story, but at least I get to live another day. The sirens are now extremely close. It's the police. They're in front of my house. They quickly rushed to aid me and ask me what happened. However, the assailants ran away quicker than the police could even imagine. They searched the house and the outside, but the assailants just disappeared out of thin air. I was brought into the police station after resting in the hospital for a couple of weeks. The doctors had to make sure I was fine before letting me go. At the police station, they asked me a couple of questions so that they could figure out what happened that night. I told them everything. Eventually, they figured out that it was the same two people who were making trouble in Van Wert. Apparently, they were twins, even though it didn't seem like it. Their names? Marco and Mason. Years have passed since that event, and I'm still terrified to this day when those names are mentioned or when the event crosses my mind. I also broke up with Evan after that, for obvious reasons.